Hello and welcome to your in-depth weekly horoscope for week commencing the 30th of May for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you the standout issues and strands to look out for. Please stay with me. I will then dive deep to give you in forensic detail each of the 12 zodiac sign forecasts. Now this week of course begins with a new moon in Gemini. Now, Gemini energy is all about how we think. It's very nimble and agile, can be very amusing, very much to do with sharing ideas and interacting in a bright and bubbly way. But of course, the moon is very much how we feel about things, and the sign of Gemini is very much more about how we assess things from a more logical viewpoint. So one of the things that we can do over the next month is to meld our drive and our ideas much more closely to how we actually feel. So it's an opportunity for sure. Now, this is also a week when Mars and Jupiter continue to be very closely together. The exact conjunction actually happened as last week came to a close. So that combination can give us a lot of thrust, a lot of traction, a lot of enthusiasm in the sign of Aries. That's very much about getting things off the ground. But both the position of Mars and Jupiter are forging a relatively positive angle to Venus, which of course has now returned to the sign of Taurus, which it governs. So that thrust and the ideas energy that the new moon has given us in Gemini can certainly see us working towards making the most of our resources, which Venus in Taurus can be very good at grappling with. It can also give us an appreciation of good food and good wine and more sensual pleasures as well. But then on Friday, Mercury ends its retrograde, also in the sign of Taurus. So, we've all being challenged by this new financial reality which is kicking in, and it has been retrograde since the 10th of May and in the sign of Taurus since the 23rd of May. But then on Saturday, Mercury comes out of shadow, but also Saturn goes into a retrograde in the sign of the people, the collective, the sign of Aquarius. So it's possible through to the 23rd of October that we're going to be more mindful, I think, over a period of time of how connected we are to one another. I'm going to do a special on the fact that Saturn and Uranus are going to go through a square again within 3 degrees from the 11th of August. So please look out for that. But the other thing to tell you is that Mercury, despite that retrograde, is actually in a very subtle but powerful link to Neptune. So one of the things that we can do this week is listen to our hunches, because they can serve us very well indeed. So Capricorn, your week commencing the 30th of May forecast sees the new moon in the 6th house. The 6th house is all about virtue and potentially also purity, because it's very Virgoan. But of course this actual event occurs in Gemini, which is quick-witted, so you can use your intellect to try to find small marginal gains to improve any situation in your world. After all, whatever we're trying to make progress with, if there are 4 or 5 things that we change by 5 or 7.5 or 10%, that can add up to a lot. Now, your natural ability to be very focused, very productive and hard working can definitely work well with this particular new moon. So you can get basically a bit straighter, a bit more productive, or a little bit more informed over the next month with the help of this new moon. But of course you have that burgeoning energy in your 4th house, very much to do with home and family. But Mars is a no-nonsense influence in the 4th house. It can be a bit impatient, so if you do want to make physical changes to where you live, the precision that comes through the new moon and the thrust of the energy, the fiery energy of Mars conjunct Jupiter, which kind of like doesn't know defeat. It has to keep moving forwards. That's a very, very potent and positive mix. Now in your 5th house, of course, Mercury has been twisting backwards. So if there have been some crosswires about going out with friends or social events or something's being rearranged, it wouldn't entirely be a surprise. But if you do need to talk something through with someone this week, Neptune can help you to do so with a great deal of delicacy and sensitivity. But once Mercury goes forwards, you have Venus, Uranus, the North Node and Mercury all in your sector of play. So whatever you're trying to achieve at the moment, if you make it fun, then you're going to make it work even better for you. Now, of course, your ruler Saturn does go into a retrograde in your sector of everyday finance and also of self-worth, and that goes on through to 23rd of October. Now, we all know that there is a big shift going on in terms of the financial structure, in terms of costs, and so, you know, this sounds like I'm stating the absolute obvious. But for you, perhaps what Saturn's asking you to work out is how much you do really rate yourself. Because whether you've got some money behind you or whether things are much more challenging at the moment, you really need to give yourself a massive salute for where you've got to and where you are now. Even if you don't feel it's quite where you want to be, it's important not to be too down on yourself, because you are very industrious, you know, you are very conscientious, but also you can be very self-critical if things aren't perhaps going quite as swimmingly as you would like. So that's the challenge really. It's not just at a practical, physical, financial level, because we are all finding those costs higher. But if you are finding that you're inclined to doubt your own self-worth on something, Saturn gives you the encouragement to push back on that kind of learnt behaviour and learn to encourage yourself and salute those achievements over the next 4 or 5 months.